Hello and welcome to the Grant Hill Chronicles podcast. I'm your host, Don Bishop, or known in some very small circles as T.S. Pedramon. I say very small circles. My Twitter account says Don Bishop writes as T.S. Pedramon. I do have a Twitter profile, but it says Grant Hill Media. Last week I created a Facebook profile, or maybe it was the week before. I created a Facebook profile for as author T.S. Pedramon. So that exists and has, 15 friends so far. But anyway, yeah, I'm here, and the big thing that I'm talking about today is I wrote a book, and that is past tense. And bear with me as I try to remember everything that I already said, because I was recording. I was like 15 minutes into this talking, and I realized that the microphone in my recording software had a red X, and I was not recording audio. I was only recording video. So, yeah, I wrote a book, past tense, because I finished first draft today. And I want to talk about the feelings I have, the thoughts that I didn't expect to have, and yeah, I hope it's interesting and helpful. So I wrote Nightshade Unicorn, or I mean that's what I'm calling the series. The first book is, I've gone through a few working titles, but this first book is Nightshade Unicorn. Oh dear, just went blank. Forerunner. And I'm thinking that the next book will be called Guardian. Anyway, so I was writing along, and it's a little over 80,000 words, 81,000 something words, and it took me approximately a month and a half trying to push through it every day. And well, I started 2 months ago, slightly over 2 months ago, but then I wasn't pushing at it full time until early September. But yeah, it's October 17th now, and a few weeks ago I thought, hey, my beginning might not really hook a reader, so I need to write a better hook. So I wrote a new scene that belonged near the end of the book, chronologically, and placed it at the front as like, this is where we're going. And then it cuts back to the start of the real story. I shared that with a writers group, and kind of the consensus I got was that it's a false hook that might be disappointing to readers, and also give plot armor to characters that are there that late in the story, so that we know suddenly at the beginning that they make it that far, or that they're still involved that far. So yeah, I needed to write a new beginning. I put this scene back later in the book where it belongs, and then I continued on from there, and I wrote the ending. And within the last week, I started writing the new beginning. And meanwhile, just pushing on every day, pushing through the middle, pushing through. And today, I wrote a few more hundred words from where I was yesterday, and I realized that the next thing that needed to come is that later scene that I wrote that I wrote a few weeks ago. That, like, we got here, we made it to the end. So then I kind of caught myself by surprise. I didn't expect to hit that today. I thought probably later this week. And it feels kind of empty, honestly, to realize that you're there. So I was kind of in a daze when I went back and I finished writing the new beginning. Actually, I wasn't certain yesterday how this new beginning was going to go. I posted in the Writer Dojo Facebook group yesterday asking if anybody might be available to brainstorm a plot point, and I, I got a response, and I sat down and talked to somebody this morning, had a chat over video, and I gave him the background of the world and what was going on, where things needed to go, and now I'm like, all right, now for the beginning, how do I approach this? And we hashed it out together, kind of hashed out the different factors involved. So I took that in consideration, and I went over the piece that I had written last Friday and Saturday, massaged it, added to it, and reached the jump off point from there that leads, sets the tone. Sets the tone for we're up against something and we need to find a way through it. And then I found myself facing feelings of insecurity that I did not expect. So I've been sharing previously. I've shared online. I mean, starting in 2014, maybe 15, pieces of the Grendhill Chronicles. And at that time, I had very little written, and I threw all of it online, on my own website, as a web novel, which is web novel is a fairly common thing these days, but I had never heard of it. I invented it on my own. I'm not saying I invented it, but I invented it as far as I knew at that time. But now, like earlier this year, I'm like, nobody knows about my website, so I went and posted on Royal Road and some other sites, the Grendhill Chronicles, right? And other authors have commented that they wouldn't do something like that. They don't want to just throw something out in the world while it's honestly still in draft form. But I'm like, well, yeah, it's not the book, and I've said that it has yet to be finished. And then once it's finished, it will need editing. So this is the raw form. If you want to read it, I'm glad to share it because I think I have a cool story in my head. Now with Nightshade Unicorn, I have a story, I have a manuscript, but I'm not sure it's ready. And so I'm going to have to put it through the paces. At the very least, I need to go through and remove the artifacts of dictation. So I dictated a lot of the manuscript because I can type a lot faster, and I can speak a lot faster than I can type. And also, when I type a lot, it hurts my hands, and I'm not all about having carpal tunnel syndrome. So I probably dictated a little over half of the story, maybe more than that, but I dictated a lot. And when you dictate, the dictation software doesn't get everything right, especially like punctuation. Microsoft Word has a mode where it will auto punctuate for you, but for me, it's just really bad. It's not good. So I have auto punctuation turned off, which means that I'm saying period, close quote, new line, open quote. I'm dictating the punctuation as well. And it still gets some of it wrong. Like Microsoft Word will type out new line rather than putting a carriage return in there. So I need to read through and catch things like that. Also, dictation software, whether it's Microsoft or Google or Lily Speech, which Lily Speech is based on Google's engine, I believe. And Apple. Actually, I do have an old Mac, and I did a little bit of dictation on that machine. But these these softwares don't know the fantasy names that I created, that I came up with. It doesn't know Alabva or Namord or Hronomon or Shronglin. And so in dictation, I've replaced these words with common English words that are not going to appear in my manuscript, in my story, like Alabama. So Alabva is the main character's name, and whenever I dictated, I said Alabama. And, Namord is Nebraska, and Shronglin is shrugging. That one actually could appear in the manuscript. And Hronomon is honeymoon. So I need to go through and make sure I caught all of these. It's possible I might have said Alabva, and then the computer types Alava. And so when I do Control F and do a find and replace and get rid of all instances of Alabama and replace them with Alabva, that doesn't mean that all of the mistakes are gone. Also, dictation software likes to capitalize words if you pause for a moment, and I pause for a moment, especially when I'm dictating a story. I pause, and then it likes to capitalize the next word, even though it's not the beginning of a sentence. So, yeah, at the very least, I need to go through those. I started putting the story in Pro Writing Aid earlier today, and I'm not really sold on that yet. I might buy it, might buy the software, but it points out a lot of things that are things that you want to be careful about. And looking at some of those, it's like, try rephrasing this. And I look at it, I'm like, no, actually, it should be phrased the way it is. And also, since it's AI based and that's been trained on the way people talk and write, and sometimes people are wrong, it does things like suggest, ooh, was this Pro Writing Aid or was this Microsoft Word? Suggested that I change a couple days to, no, sorry. It suggested I remove the of in a couple of days. And maybe it's accepted to say a couple days, but that sounds wrong to me. And at the very least, a couple of days is more correct, at least in my eyes. I'll listen to a human editor tell me otherwise. I might still prefer to have the word of there, but yeah, as of now, I'm not sold on the AI editing yet. I might later. But also, since I want to make this my day job, full-time day job, right now it's a full-time apprenticeship, but internship. If I want to treat it as a full-time gig, then I need to treat it as a full-time gig, and there's no excuse for not doing the work if I'm on the clock, so to speak. If I'm working and my working is writing, then I need to get the writing out. And if I feel like, oh, I have writer's block, well, I need to step back and think about where I'm coming from, think about where I'm going to, and see the options and pick one and press forward. And so sometimes, at least for me, that led to several days where I was not convinced that I wanted to write this part this way. But it was the obvious thing at the time, and I had no muse really striking me, so I pressed on. And I guess this is what you do. I mean, the successful authors, they just write. And I have this sign behind my desk that says, write a lousy book, then fix it, because I don't want to get hung up and not produce the work. And I can't fix it if it doesn't exist first. So I press through. And yeah, I want to read through it carefully and you know, I'm emailing a very successful author, and I told him today, yeah, I finished, and now I want to go back through and make some corrections before I share it with anyone. And he emailed back really quick and said, "Congratulations, good work. Perfection is," he just said, "perfect is the enemy of done." And that's a good point, because I'm sure I could go back and nitpick and improve it for months and months. But if I want to get it out in the world in a reasonable timeline and maybe make some money off of it, then there should be a time when it's good enough. I'm not trying to write a masterpiece. I'm trying to write a good book, but I'm not trying to write the most perfect book ever, because that would take decades and I would still fail. I hope it's good. I can't promise that it is. I think it's built on a good concept. There are places that I want to take it in books 2 and 3. I think it's going to be at least 3 books. It might be 4. I don't know. So yeah, there are places I want to take it, but right now the story hit a resolution, and it's time for me to take this chunk. I mean, it's not, the story is not over. It's a fantasy story. There's some big evil threatening the world, right? That big evil has not been conquered, and that situation has not been resolved. But the first piece leading that way is in place. So here we have a coherent chunk, I hope. And now I'm going to work it over, and once it's gotten its work over, then I'll really look at publishing methods and consider how I want to send it out into the world. Hope that it does good things. So yeah, like, share, and comment if you want to help me share this book with people. Then yeah, like and share the podcast, rate the podcast, give it a review, and drop me a line. Send an email to author@thorn.link, and I'll drop you a line back. And don't forget our contest that is still live, called Fantasty. You might remember several months ago when we misspoke during a podcast and decided to go ahead and keep it in. So Fantasty is a thing. Send us an email or a tweet, or comment on, tag us on Instagram, share us a picture of your food that you made in your kitchen or that you grew in your garden. And that's a contest. And like I said in a previous episode, I will give you a gift card to the restaurant or the retailer of your choice. What did I say? $30? It was at least $30. Maybe it was 30. I'll go back and check on that. But yeah, so send us a tweet or tag us at Grandhill Cron on social media, or at Grandhill Chronicles, and or email it to fantasty@thorn.link with the subject line Fantasty, and that's a contest. So, whoops, I blacked out. Wrong window. There we go. And I can't believe I almost forgot. I need to give a shout out to Max Hall. He's writing a story called Reincarnated as a Peasant, which you can find on Royal Road. And that link will be in the show notes. Again, that's reincarnated as a peasant. It's pretty interesting. Like it does some jumping between worlds, and yeah, check it out. All right. Yeah, lots of insecurities now about this book. I hope it's good. And maybe you want to be a beta reader or an early advanced copy reader. I will be looking for those, because when I do publish it, just the way things work, the algorithms out in the world, I'll be looking to get honest reviews very soon upon publishing it and making it go live. So if you might like an advanced reader copy and you're willing to give it an honest review, drop me a line at author@thorn.link. Anyway, yeah, I'll wrap it up. We'll see you next time on the Grand Hill Chronicles podcast.